guys, welcome back to another Feisty Ferrets stream. It's Kayla again. Nice to see you guys. It's been a while, but we're back. So this stream is going to be a bit more casual. We're going to jump back into our playground level and keep building that up to hopefully inspire you guys to have some more ideas and build up your own levels. And I'm also going to walk you guys through a new feature as well as just some reminders of how things work in case you guys are blocked by anything. So the first thing that I wanted to show you guys, I saw a few messages in the Discord about not being able to find the right version of Unity and stuff like that. So I'm just going to walk you guys through quickly how to get that Unity version again. Just a little reminder in case you guys are stuck on it because it can be a bit confusing. So the first thing that you're going to want to do once you have the Unity installed in the first place, the Unity Hub, you can either find it as a desktop icon that will look like this, or you could type it into your search bar down here right by the Windows icon. So either way, this is what it looks like. It's a little white square. Open that up. And once it's open, if you don't have any version of Unity installed and you only have the Unity Hub, you can go to installs and you probably won't have anything here. This is the version that we're looking for, but it won't be available right off the bat, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I want a new version of Unity, if I didn't have anything here, or say that I was working in this version, but I wanted a newer version or an older version for some reason, I could go to add. And these ones listed here are the ones that are the most supported versions and the latest releases, but you don't have to use those. What we're using is not going to be listed on here. And if you want one of those, there's this first blue link here, the download archive. So you can press on that and it brings up this web page. And then you can find all of the versions ever, basically, right here. So again, the version that we want is 2021.1.12. And again, that's not going to be listed here initially. So what we'll have to do is scroll down through these and look for the one that we want. So if we wanted 21.1.12, this is the one that we'd be looking for. And once you find that, you can just press on the Unity Hub button and then open Unity Hub to allow it to actually install it. So hopefully that explains it a little bit better. I know it's a bit of a complicated process, but hopefully you guys can get the right version of Unity and start working in the project whenever you're ready. The other thing that I wanted to go over was on our project portal, whenever you're done with a task, you're going to want to update your progress so that we know that you're done with the task, and that's so that we can look at whatever you've created for us. So the way that you do that, if you have a task selected and you've joined one, you press on Update My Progress. And then it'll bring up more information about it, which you guys have already seen. But you're going to press it again down here. And it'll bring up this cool little form that you can submit. You can say that it's in progress, or you have a question, or if you're done with it, you can submit it for completion. And you can type in this description box anything you want, including links to anything that you have. So on all of these tasks, you can type whatever you want. And then press submit. I'm going to cancel it for now since I don't actually have anything to update. But what we want submitted in there is listed under here. So for example, for creating a prototype level, we want a link to the Unity package that you generate with all of the assets and the levels that you've created so that we can check it out, play test it, etc. So basically it'll just be a link to a Google Drive with the Unity package. It's a bit complex. We should have a tutorial showing you how to do that. But if you're done with a level, then please let us know, because it would be really awesome to play test it, which we're going to be starting next week in the following streams. So on Monday, we'll start the play testing process. If we have enough levels to playtest multiple, then we'll do multiple streams, but we're at least going to walk you guys through the process of playtesting because it's super fun to just be able to play the game and say, oh, I think this is working and I think this isn't working. So that's going to be exciting next week. But if you have any levels that are finished and you're wanting us to give you feedback and stuff like that, and to get feedback from your other peers, definitely remember to update the progress on this creating a prototype level. And that's everything that I wanted to remind you guys about, but I also would like to introduce a new, not really a mechanic, but a feature that we have. I mentioned it in the last stream that it was something that I think we needed, so I've created that for us, and it should help a little bit with just the smoothness of playing this. So what it is a checkpoint system, and basically it's this little flag, which right now is honestly just like a little plane. So we should have the art team probably making a nicer looking flag for us at some point, but I'll just show you how it works. So this is our familiar good old example level. We've all seen this before. So if I go and spawn our ball, push it onto our trigger over here, this goes up, jump up there, and we see this flag is kind of tan and down. Don't really know what it is, but if we approach it, it'll turn blue and raise up. And now, since this checkpoint has been activated, if we were to jump down here or fall down there more specifically, then we'll just get teleported right back to here. And that just makes it easier for your players to not get stuck repeating level parts over and over again. There are already some improvements that we could make on this system that I can think of, but the point of prototyping and getting the early mechanics of a game is just to get the simplest version and then iterate on that. So we've been to that one, and if we go towards this checkpoint, it activates, and now if we fall off again, it'll just send us to the most recent checkpoint. And something that's interesting is the checkpoint isn't actually being updated to reflect only the most recent one. We're actually teleporting to both of them. So that is an improvement that could be made, one of them. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If I take our little ferret over here, I'm just going to kind of teleport him upwards so that he spawns in this part of the level. Play. We spawn in a different place. So we're kind of cheating right now by spawning halfway through the level. We could still activate this checkpoint, but now if we fall down here, we're not going to teleport back. And the reason that is the case is because the way you set these up right now, unless we make any improvements and we want to change things, is you have a, let's see, go to assets, prefabs, level setup, checkpoint. I'll go to the inspector here. So we have these checkpoints that we can kind of just like drag and place wherever we want to. You can see I have my little checkpoints here organized, but this one just spawned right there. I'm going to delete it, but that's how you put it into the level. And then once it's in the level, you can go look at this one specifically. So I placed it here, and it has a few parts to it that need to be set up in order to actually work. So first thing is the activation bounds, and that's this kind of circular shape that's around it that's invisible, but you can kind of see the outline when you're in the scene mode and the editor. You can't see it in the game. But we know that it's a sphere collider, so that means that whenever we step into this radius of a circle, of a sphere around this checkpoint, then we're going to activate it. And we can change this radius to be whatever size we want. If we wanted to be able to step in further away or like fall into it from further up, then we could just change the radius. I like it at 10, but that's fine. And we can also change where it's centered. So right now it's at 0, 0, 0, which means that it's starting wherever we've placed this overall checkpoint. So the checkpoint parent is this, and it's just an empty game object. It has one script on it that you don't need to worry about right now, but you do need to worry about the transform because that is what's going to be moving around in space. And so if we have this child object set at 0, 0, 0 on all of these, then it's just going to be at the location where the parent is. And if we wanted to change that, if we wanted to offset it, we could move this transform, or we could move the sphere collider itself. So if I wanted this to go like further up from where the actual flag is, then I could do that. And that's going to be more important with the reset bounds than with the activation bounds, because We want the flag to activate when we get close to the flag. That makes sense. But when exactly do we want to be respawned to this point? We don't want it to be right on top of where we're triggering this and activating this flag, because then anytime we go into this flag's area, we're just going to be reset back to that flag, reset back to that flag, and that's not exactly what we want, right? What we want is whenever we fall down into a point of the level that we have already completed, we want to be reset back to this point. So the reset bounds are actually going to be further back in a separate part of the level than the actual flag itself. So right now, instead of a sphere collider, like we had the radius around us in all directions for the sphere collider, the reset bounds uses a box collider. And if I zoom out a little bit, you can see the green shape, same thing that we saw with the sphere collider, but now you can see it in a square, and it's not right up against this flag, right? It's further down, it's spreading out quite a lot wider than our radius was. And so that basically just means I've set all of this. So if it was centered at 0, 0, 0 on both the transform and the center bit for the box collider, then it would be like this, the sphere collider right centered on the flag. But this one is offset from that. And that'll just kind of take some playing around with. But like if I wanted it to be further up, I could just move it on the Y, et cetera, et cetera. And I can change the size. Like if I wanted it to be, if I wanted to fall and have it trigger from a lot higher instead of falling all the way down and then resetting, I could just make that thicker. So you can change all of those things, but definitely when you're setting up your checkpoints, think about, okay, where do I actually want to fall down and have that reset happen? And you can also, if you need it to not be a uniform shape, you can also add multiple kinds of colliders. Like I could also add a sphere collider to this reset bounds and like move that wherever I wanted, make it as big as I wanted, etc. And that's where using not the transform but the center works, because if you want there to be multiple types of colliders, or even just multiple of the same kind but in different places, like if your level has kind of a complex shape to it instead of being quite uniform like this one, then instead of moving the transform, which will move all of those colliders around, you can just move the center of that one, and it'll just be a lot easier to control all of them separately. So yeah, that's how the reset bounds work. And right now, the reason that we didn't reset when we fell off of this one and we had cheated and put our little ferret up here instead of where he normally spawns is because the reset bounds for this one is actually only over here. So what's happening is, if you look, just scroll out again to show you the bounds. So here's our checkpoint 2 reset bounds, right? It's just around our little kind of second platform in the level. And the checkpoint 1 reset bounds is all the way down on the floor. You can see it's a lot lower and it's quite thin. So what's happening is if we only trigger this checkpoint and not both of them, and then we fall down onto the floor, well, we've never actually activated this first checkpoint, which has this lower reset bounds, right? So in order to for us to be respawned back to this one, we have to trigger this reset bounds, the first one, after having activated it, and then trigger this reset bounds. So when you see the immediate teleportation from, if we go on this one after having activated the first one and we fall down, we automatically teleport here. But actually what's happening is we're teleporting to the first one first and then the second one. But because computers are so fast, it just looks like it's happening immediately, which is really cool. And if we wanted to improve on the system, we could have something that stores just the most recent checkpoint instead of going through all of them. And that could be important if we have a lot of checkpoints later on. But again, finding the very simplest solution is what's most important when you're prototyping and in the early phases of things. And it works. So that's basically the point of early prototyping, is getting it to work. So yeah, I think that this will help you guys when you're playtesting your own levels. It can be really frustrating to fall down and like have to redo parts of the level over and over again. So hopefully this helps you guys. I know I'm excited about it because I don't have to keep doing the same old platforming things over and over again. So that is the checkpoint system. Hopefully it makes sense. If you're confused by the collisions, don't worry about it. We can go over it a bit more in another stream. But one thing to keep in mind is there's multiple kinds of collisions in Unity. And anything with a collision just uses a collider. And a collision just means that basically there's an event that can happen whenever you push into whatever shape this collider is making. So there's multiple types of colliders. If I press add component here, there's lots of different kinds. There's 2-dimensional ones, there's 3-dimensional ones. We should only be using 3D ones, which don't specify that they're 3D. It'll just say collider. 2D specifies if it's 2D, so don't use those. Just use the ones that don't specify. But there's multiple types. There's box colliders, which are those squares, and you can make them rectangular or keep them in a uniform box shape. There are sphere colliders, which are this one that we're looking at right now with the radius all around us. There's capsule colliders, which are usually used for more human and oblong shaped things. It's kind of a long, a capsule, like a pill shape. And that can be good for going around human shapes that are standing upright, or ferret shapes like what we have sometimes. So there's a whole bunch of different colliders. And there's also 2 types of collisions that can go on. So if we wanted to not be able to enter this space that we see in the green outline here, then we would kind of just leave it as is. I'll show you what that means. So if I were to add a box collider, this is this teensy little box that is spawned here because I haven't changed the size or the position or anything. It's just at 0, 0, 0, and the size is 1, 1, 1, so it's really tiny, and it's right where our flag is centered. And right now, if I were to just leave it like this, I wouldn't be able to enter this little box space. That would be pushing me outwards, and I wouldn't be able to enter it anymore. But if I turn on this is trigger flag, which we want to in order to do the checkpoints, then we will be able to enter that space, but we can have some other event happen when we enter that space. So instead of pushing us out of the space, if it's a trigger, it will just recognize, okay, we're now inside this space, and it can have some kind of event happen. So that's just important to note if you're going to be using this checkpoint system in your own levels. And again, you have a more complex shaped level and you need more colliders than I have just set up in the initial flags. You'll just want to make sure that they're all triggers, so that otherwise you'll be just pushed out of it and the events won't trigger and you'll be like, why isn't it working? So just knowing the difference between whether it's a trigger, which means you can enter it, but an event can happen, versus not being a trigger, which means you cannot enter that space that it's taking up, is important. And again, we can have more discussions on colliders another time. For now, I think that the flag system as is should work just fine. But improvements are always good to know about. It's always good to think ahead, even if you don't implement them right away. Thinking like, oh, I think this could be better later on. It's the same thing in level design. If you're building up something and you're like, this is working pretty well, but maybe I could make this change later on, it's just good to note it and have it as an idea for later when you have more time for it. So now that we've gone over that, I'm going to jump into more level design. So last time we were working on this playground. I've added a few more balls, and I've raised up the walls a bit since it was quite low last time and we were basically just able to hop on one of these little blocks and kind of just jump over the edge. That wasn't exactly the feel that I wanted, so I've raised up the walls and added a third one of these little cubes for us to jump on top of and rearrange. And again, I added more balls to increase the chaos a little bit, so I will just play this to show you how it feels a little bit different from when we left off. Not super different, same idea, right? But we have even more balls to move around. And let's see, I think we want this wall. So if I use my little snoot to scoot all these things out of the way, I think it's so precious that we're basically using our little nose to push things. It's so cute. I love it. I love our ferret. He still doesn't have a name. No one has recommended any names yet. I would love to name this little guy. So please, if you have any ideas for this precious boy's name, he deserves an adorable name to match his adorableness. Just gonna scoot these balls around. Ah, so fast. I might need to turn up some of the physics variables on this to make it a little bit less slidey. Increase the friction or the drag. Whee! I love how they just scatter. And let's see. So hopefully if I swap over without using the mic, I keep charging it and it keeps being finicky. I might have to get a new one for these streams, which is unfortunate, but it's okay. Hopefully it'll start charging better soon, but just gonna keep doing this. Okay, so now we've got it all set up. And we can jump on top of them. And we can see now that with the higher walls, we don't just immediately jump over it. And now we've activated our first checkpoint. Yay. And now if we fall down into this area, we reset back to our checkpoint. So I think that makes us ready to move on to building up the next part of the level. And that will be, I don't know if we talked about it last time, I can't remember, but what I'm envisioning, let me zoom out a little bit. So I have this initial ball pit area, right? And then we have this first platform that we're kind of trying to get up onto. And one thing to note for this checkpoint, I'll probably build up a few more gray box little platform areas to prevent you from falling down into this kind of area where you can't really do anything, because right now, if you get stuck down here, you can't escape. And actually, so one way that I could resolve this is by adding more of these platforms to just kind of block that off and not even be able to fall down there. But I think what I might do instead, because I just thought of it, and this is great because sometimes when you're building up your level, like you don't exactly have a plan for how you want the geometry to be and you're just kind of seeing what feels good. So initially that was my plan, like, oh, I'll just add a bunch more platforms so that you can't fall down there. But as I was just talking, I was like, oh, well, what if we have these ramps, right? So what if I just added a ramp on this side? So if you do fall down into that area, you can kind of just climb up like stairs, but then you have to be in the ball pit. The only thing, okay, see, this is great because this is exactly the experience. You're like thinking out loud and you're like, oh, what if I did this? And then you're like, oh, well, maybe not. Because the problem with that would be these walls are thick enough right now, and I could just make them skinnier to resolve this, but they're thick enough right now that if I did have like a ramp right in this area, hopefully you can see my mouse, but like if I had a ramp just kind of leading upwards here, then I could just be able to kind of skip over this part of the level, this puzzle, and just kind of like run around these walls. So what I think I'm going to do, and again, this is like kind of a more casual stream. I'm just going to be talking out loud and working on this level as I think of stuff. But what I think I'm going to do is just make these skinnier so that hopefully I would fall off. Honestly, I might even make them even skinnier than that to make sure that I'd fall off. And then I'll be able to add my ramp and not just be able to platform on these. So since they're skinnier, whenever you change the size of something, it does it from the center. So you're going to have to rearrange where these are because now that they're thinner, since it is doing it from the center, not from one side or the other, now our positions will not be as lined up anymore. So you can just do that by sight. You can also do it again by changing these variables directly. And that can be helpful if you know exactly how much you change the size by. You can just say, okay, well, I'm this much less thick now, so I know that I have to move over by this much, but you can also just do it by dragging things around in space like I just did. And then I'm going to go to level platforming, and I'm going to use, let's see, we have 2 ramps. I think I'm just going to use the straight ramp here. And that's way too short, as we can see, so I'm going to make it a lot bigger. And we talked about this last time. This might stretch out our material a little bit and make it look a little bit funny, but it doesn't really matter right now because we can fix that later. And again, in every step of the sense, in programming and level design, in everything, you just want to get the bare minimum product out there so that you can iterate on it. But you need that initial step first, right? It's all about just getting it onto the screen, getting it working. Don't worry about it being perfect yet, you know? Good call. It looks kind of funny when you're just like stretching it in one direction. I actually might use this instead. Yeah, it's better. This could even be a little bit more of a challenge than intended because, let's see, I'll make it a little bit wider. You could just fall off the edge of this, right? Okay, I think... Ooh, this is actually taller. See, because it's doing it from the center, it kind of went down into that, and it's even taller than I thought it was. So make it a little bit shorter. So squishy. Okay, I think that that's tall enough now for us to kind of just jump over the edge. But we can test that later. The other thing is that I was going to mention is right now for this checkpoint, we were talking about the bounds, right? So if I were to fall into this area at all, and it's actually not touching the floor right now, so I could lower that if I wanted to, but for our purposes, it doesn't really matter. We can just fall kind of into the center of this and know, okay, if we fall anywhere in this area, if we kind of pass through this, then we need to reset back to the checkpoint. But right now it's not going around the whole floor. I just have it set into this little area, so if you kind of fall off the edge a little bit on this side, you could miss it. And that's, you know, if we had it closer to the floor, then maybe we would run into it later, and it would be a little bit disconcerting for the player, but right now it's fine as is. But right now, if I wanted to test if this ramp is tall enough, I would have to intentionally make sure that I either cheat by moving where he spawns just to play test it and then move him back, or when I'm up here, once I've solved this puzzle, I would have to kind of make sure that I go around where the bounds are. And since you can't see it when you're in the actual game window, well, we have our UI, but once you're actually playing the game, you know these little outlines disappear, so we won't be able to see it anymore. So I just have to make sure, okay, I think it's in this area. I'm just going to go really wide around it. But right now, I'm just going to cheat and move him over here. Oh, see, this happens sometimes. You press the wrong thing, and that was really weird, wasn't it? Ooh, it's so weird. Game design is so fun. Okay, so now I've clicked on the parent, right? We want to always make sure that we're clicking on the parent. I just move the whole thing out and not just one of his hips. I put him there, and now I can play test if this ramp is tall enough for us to get in there. And this is a bit more elegant of a solution, I think, than making a whole bunch of platforms because it could ruin the geometry that we have going on. Make sure. I think if I was really careful, I might be able to platform around this, but I don't think that people are going to be that careful. And if they are, then like that's a test of skill. So go ahead. If you can platform that well, that's fine. But yeah, so now if we fall out, instead of having to put a whole bunch of platforms and perhaps making the geometry look a little weird, we can have more control over these platform geometry pieces just by adding this one little piece instead of adding a bunch more platforms. So now that we have some way to get back into the initial puzzle, we can start making our little, like I said, I don't remember if I mentioned it before, but I was envisioning kind of a rock climbing wall, because what I want to happen is for us to get through this puzzle, and then we're up on this platform, right? And I want this to kind of be an interesting layout for a cage where we have this middle piece that we have to get up to, but then instead of going up a third time like we did in the example level, I want us to have to go back down again, but have it be an area that's not accessible unless we first go up. So right now I want to have a kind of rock climbing wall-ish thing. It probably won't look like a rock climbing wall at first, but it will look like a wall with things that are moving around that we have to skillfully platform up and onto. And then once we've reached up here, I want there to be, I'm thinking probably not a ramp, probably just a piece of wood going across between these two platforms, so that once we're up here, we have to go back down to reach our level exit over here. but there's no way to reach that level exit unless we first go up. Like if I were to get up here, this is far too big of a jump for our ferret to make, and there's no trampolines or anything like that. So we know that we have to go up first. And I might even want to block the sight lines of this, and this is something that you have to think about. Like, what can our players see right now? Are they tempted to try to make this jump? And will they feel frustrated by falling down when they can't make that jump because they think, oh, this isn't fair, I can see the exit, but I can't get there. So we might want to just kind of block their sight lines at first, and the wall might make that happen just fine by itself, especially if I make the rock wall like, it would be really cool actually if I had the rock wall going around this entire part, and you could kind of choose your path instead of there being one linear path that you have to platform on. You could kind of just like try your best, just like a real rock climbing wall where you're deciding where you want to go and it's not just a straight shot up. So that could just fix the sightline thing, because we'll get up here and we might see it briefly, but then we'll enter this space where everything's blocked off and we just have a bunch of moving parts, and we're like, okay, we know we have to go up now, instead of being tempted to try to get straight to the level end. So I think what I'm going to do first, I'll use this as a reminder of how to just make the new geometry. So I'm going to rename this ball pit puzzle, because now we're going to have multiple puzzles. I'm going to make another empty object, right? You just right click and you can make any of the things you want. I just want an empty game object right now that has nothing but the transform, because it's just going to parent the other things. We're going to remember always to reset it to 0, 0, 0 so that we're not offsetting all of the child objects initially. I'm going to rename this one rock wall puzzle. And again, it's not going to look like rock walls at first. It's just going to look like a wall with some moving blocks, but it could look like a rock wall someday. That would be neat. And once I have that set up, we can organize a little bit more. And I'm going to make a 3D object. I'll just make a cube. And if I move that up, here, I'll put it to 0, 0, 0 as well. Move it up a little bit so we can see it. And just like when we made the box collider earlier and it was super tiny, same thing when we make a regular cube. It's just going to be super tiny at first, and we're going to have to form it to whatever size and shape we want. And again, the reason that we use these gray boxes are because we don't care about how pretty it is right now. We're just trying to get it to work. So let's see. If I have this here, this flag here, we're going to want to be able to enter it. And we do have these little kind of archway cubes, which could be cute, same as the level exit. We could have like an archway that leads into the flag, and then it would be like a nice little entrance way to this rock climbing wall. Or we could just have a whole bunch of cubes and kind of have like a square doorway set up. I think it would be less complex to just start with the square. So maybe later on we'll add this block archway to make it look even prettier. But for now, I'm just going to give that to you. I'm just going to make it a square thing so that we have these 3 separate wall pieces that kind of make the archway for us, even if it's not as pretty as the one that Dan made for us. That's okay. It doesn't have to be pretty right now. So I'm going to resize this, stretch it out. It's going to have to be stretched out all the way to the end of this. And again, whenever you do these things like resizing it, it's going to do it from the center. So even though I'm only dragging in this direction, if I zoom out a little bit, I'm only dragging this way, but it's not only extending in that direction, right? It's dragging out from the center. So I have to kind of be aware, okay, like even if it's not quite to the edge over here, like it's the correct size, and even it's a little bit too big right now, so I can make it smaller and then drag it around. Let's see, I want it to be over here. Drag it down a bit. And gonna put it back on the sizing one, drag it up to make it more of a wall. Ooh, that's very tall. And again, I don't need it to be the full size because I know that it's going from the center. So if I pull it up, it'll be even taller now. That's pretty good. I think it needs to be just a little bit bigger. Actually, this one needs to be shorter because, again, we're making this archway, right? So we are actually going to have 3 pieces kind of the top piece that covers the whole length of it, and then these two side pieces that are a bit shorter on each side so that we have like an entranceway and we're not totally blocked off from this flag here like we are right now. So I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter, drag it up, and it's a bit too far over right now. So we can just kind of manipulate the scene camera to see where we want to be. And things don't have to line up perfectly. It's okay for it to be a little bit messy right now. I'll say it a million times. I know it's going to get annoying, but it really is just about getting it on the screen. It is not about perfection. All right, so I think that's lined up well enough for what we want. I'm just going to copy paste it for now. Drag it down. So now we have, this looks like the exact same one, right? Because we copy pasted it. And again, that's Control-C, Control-V in Unity. But it's a separate object, even though it looks the same. So we can move it around separately, etc. So I'm going to drag it down. Use this again to make it shorter on this side. Drag it over. Maybe even a little bit shorter. Yeah, that should be good. And it should hopefully be lined up with this first one. Copy paste again, Control-C, Control-V. Move this one over here, and then I'll probably move this flag a bit inwards. And since this is the parent of everything, underneath of it, it's this prefab, right? And the checkpoint one, that's just the parent. So if I move the whole thing, then all of the pieces, all of the colliders, everything attached as children are going to move as well. That's okay. We're still set up well to have us be caught if we fall back down into here, right? So that's okay for now. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good little doorway, and it leads up to there, so it's definitely wall-ish. And the last thing that I'm going to do with this, actually, I might move this a little bit over so that it lines up there. That's good. And then I'm going to copy paste this one more time, but we're not going to leave it over there. We want another wall that, again, blocks our sight line of the jump that could be tempting over here, and just make it all walls. So in order for it to face the other way, I'm going to rotate it. And you can rotate it again by using this button up here and using these little swivels. Or if you want it to be an exact turn, there we go. In order to, the way that I'm going backwards and forth so fast is I think it was Control Z to undo and then Control Y to redo. You don't have to remember all of these shortcuts right now, but they are helpful if you ever get really into Unity. But anyways, you can either use this little swivel button up here, same as we had the size button, the scaling button up here, or if you know the exact numbers that you want, you can just type it in the inspector over here. And our UI is kind of blocking this from seeing perfectly right here, but we can tell that it's a little bit wide, it's hanging off the edge. And I can just make that a little bit shorter, maybe a little more, move it over. And that's good enough for now. And then we'll want it to be a bit taller to fully do that blocking of sight. Move it up a bit. And sticking up a teensy bit there, but I think that's pretty well set up for what we need for now. So again, our UI is kind of blocking us right now, but you are fully able, just so you know, if you wanted to not see this UI element, you can turn off the sight for anything that you want. So like if I didn't want to see any of the level exit stuff, I can just click this little uncheck thing here, and now I just can't see it. And that'll still be true if you play the game. This level exit just will not be visible at all anymore. It'll still be in the level, but you won't be able to see any of it because it's deactivated. So if you ever have something like blocking you, just don't forget about it. It's really easy to like turn it off here and then just keep going about your day, and then maybe you make a second one or whatever happens, but it's really easy to just forget that it's turned off. So don't forget that you've deactivated it, but you can just kind of remove it for a little bit if it's blocking something else that you want. And notice, like, it didn't just remove our UI. The level exit has that UI piece and the physical level exit attached to it. So our little archway over here that was there earlier is also not visible anymore. But this is good. So we have this big wall set up, and what we want now is to go back into our prefabs, one folder up, kind of empty these. I'm going to rename these all wall. Name it with some numbers. Maybe I'll make better names later, but at least better than just cube 1, 2, and 3. We know that these are all walls specifically. And now we have all of our walls. So now what we want is, I think it's in platforming. Did I make a prefab for this? I'm not sure I made a prefab for it, but we can basically put whatever we want into here and just attach a script to it, which is, I will be making a new set of a new package for you guys and putting that out on Monday when it's time to start playtesting, because I want you guys to have the most updated levels, and I also want you guys to have all of the new features that have been implemented, because I think that would be helpful for you guys. So that will be released on Monday. But if you ever need to start using a script, I mean, it's just good to know how to use them anyways. So we can put in this dude here. I'm not exactly sure how I want the elements to be set up yet, but actually I'm going to start on this wall. Yeah. I'm going to put one kind of on the floor and have that be our very first moving piece here. Okay, so we have this block now in here. It could have been just a regular gray box. I'm just going to use this. I don't want us to be able to push it, so I'm going to remove the rigid body because, again, remember, rigid bodies are what makes physics interact with you, and if you don't want physics to interact with you, then you don't want a rigid body. You can still be able to collide into things and be pushed out of them with the collider. That is not a trigger, so a regular collider, you can still push into it and have it push you back, but the rigid body makes it kind of like if you push it, it can rotate and things like that, and it can have a force applied to it, and we don't want that right now, right? Because this is just going to be basically things that are moving from one place to another, and we're going to be platforming over them. So we have this, and we're going to take off the rigid body, and then since we don't have the asset set up as a prefab yet, which I will do, like I said, we can go into asset scripts, obstacle scripts. And again, you probably won't need to be able to put scripts on things yourself, but it's good to know how that process works anyways. So let's see. This was my block rectangle normal. I'm going to put it under our rock wall puzzle so I know exactly which one I'm dealing with. What do you call a rock wall piece? I don't really know what they call them. I'll just put it, I don't know, just put object 1, that's fine. I know what it means. And then let's see. So move object between points is the name of this one. You can see if you click on it, even though you can't read the whole text right here, the full name will pop up as well as the full file path will pop up down here. And we can just drag this script onto our object here. So you literally just click on it with the left click and then pull it onto here. And then if we click on it again, this script is now applied to it. So what this script does is lets it move slowly over time from one point to another. So let's figure out what we want our endpoint to be. I think, let's see. I think I want it 30, 40. 40 feels good. Okay. So what I want this to be, if this is, I'll just make it a solid 11. No, I'll just make it a solid 10. So if that's 10, our starting point is 10, 22.46, 1601. And I was just experimenting to see where exactly I want it to go. And I just want it to kind of go along the x-axis back and forth. I don't want it to move up or down or anything. Not for this one. Could for others. But we can just start by setting up the initial values. So right now this is the same as our starting value. And I know that I want it to be plus 40. I can just add that right there. And then if we press play, I'm going to cheat again by moving our ferret over here, remembering to click on the parent object and not on one of the children so you don't start stretching him out all weird and making him look funny. We'll move him around so that he's up here right away, and we can just start playtesting this without having to go through the first part of the level. Let's see if that starts moving the way we want it to. Okay, awesome. So now it's moving. It'll move to that point. Again, it's from the starting point, and we just added 40 in the X direction, so it'll go to that position. It'll stop for a little bit, and then it should go back to moving in the opposite direction. And we can change how fast we want it to move and how long we want it to pause. That'll just depend on what we decide we want, but yeah, now we can jump on top of it. Oh, I missed. Okay, yeah. So, and if it starts moving again, we'll kind of have to like move to stay on top of it, I believe. But yeah, it's moving around now, and so we know that's working, and we can start making a whole bunch of them. So again, with this script, the most important part is just figuring out in this kind of transform, experimenting with where exactly you want it to go, and then setting that up down here as its endpoint. But again, you can change the pause time at points, which is, if you noticed, it moved to its end position, stopped for a while, and so this pause time at points is how long it stops for. And then it moves really slowly over time. So if I wanted it to move super fast, I would lower the movement time. And let's see what that does. Hey, yeah, it's like immediately there. And if we just wait, should have lowered the pause time as well. But if we just wait a little bit longer, it should move like really fast to its starting point too. Yep, super fast. So you guys can, if you guys want to use this specific asset, again, I'll be making a prefab for it so you guys don't have to drag the script on yourself, but now you know how to. You can apply this script to anything that you want to in the game, and it will just automatically move it from point A to point B, just depending on these little variables here. So we have that one initially. I think I'm going to make the pause time like 3 seconds and make the move time, I think 10 felt good for that speed. And then I can just start kind of copy pasting and set these up all over the place. And right now I'm just kind of placing them willy-nilly, and I can change their sizes however I want to make it more interesting. This one will probably be a bit difficult. Maybe I'll make it a little bit wider from there, move that around to make it a little bit more fair to stay on this one. One thing to avoid with this is I believe they'll just be able to kind of collide into each other and stop each other from moving. And then I think they'll just get stuck there. So probably try not to set them up in a way that they're going to collide into each other. That's another improvement that we could make, right? Like, it's good to note these down and be like, hey, maybe we should fix this later on. But for now, just kind of have that in mind as you're designing these levels. But I'm just kind of placing these wherever I feel like right now. I don't really have a plan for how the timing will align on these, but I can either just start placing them and get a feel for it, like, oh, this is going pretty slow, so maybe I want the one above it to go a bit faster, and I want it to start over here and end over here, so maybe they kind of cross, and I have to have a kind of skilled, timed thing. But it's up to you whether you feel like planning out that timing and the movement of things initially. It's definitely a more difficult task than just placing things, is thinking about, okay, they're going to be moving, so I have to time out when they cross paths and when the player can actually jump from one to the other. I'm just going to kind of start placing them around and see how it feels. Then you can change the sizes of them to make them more interesting. And they don't have to move, also, is another thing. You can, just set up one of these just a cube and just have it kind of sit there and not have the script on it. Or this is kind of a waste of a script, but you could also just put the end position as the start position, and then it will just not move. It'll just stay in that position. So either way, they don't all have to move, is my point. So that's probably best for a rock wall anyways. So if I wanted to just like remove the script from it, now it'll just sit there. And then I don't have to worry about this one trying to push into this one on its path. Let's see. gonna make this one come out a little bit more from the wall. Oh, I flattened it on accident. A little bit more from the wall, and I want this one to move this way. Actually, I think I want this one to move up and down. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so if I want that, let's see, maybe like -10. Oh no, that's that one. It's 10. Yeah, I think we'd be able to make that jump. I have to test it, but we'll see. So we have this initial location, just Control-C and Control-V for these values. And I think I'm going to put -12 here. So that'll be our end position for that one. So it won't move side to side. It'll just move up and down on this one. This one is already moving side to side. This one I think I want it to move kind of diagonally along here. I don't know if it even has a purpose for that yet, but I just think it would be neat to have one that moves kind of like a moving stairs, like an escalator. So if I want that, I think I want it to move in this direction, so I'll subtract. It's a little bit too few, so yeah, -20 feels good there. I'll start by copy pasting, Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V, that one was already there. And then I want a -20 for that endpoint, and I'll plus this one. That's a little bit too high, so maybe +15. Yeah, that should be good. All right, +15 down here. And let's see, this one I might just have stand still as well. And remember, the point here is to be able to create a path that the players can get up here, right? I don't know if that's possible with the timing on these yet. Oh yeah, I need to change the timing on some of them so they're not all moving the exact same pace. Oh no, moving time of 0, that's not good. Then it will just teleport. Let's see, I think I'm gonna make this one a little bit faster. And it'll pause for longer since it's a bit more complex of a jump. This one, I'm just going to remove the script from because I don't want it to move. This one, I think, this one's moving up and down. So I think what I want it to do is, I think I don't want it to pause. I think I want it to just be constantly moving. So I could just set the pause time to 0 and it should just, as soon as it gets to the second point, it should just start moving up and down. And for this one, how fast do I want it to move? I think it would be frustrating if it moved too slowly. So maybe like, I'll try 4, see how that feels. And then this one was also just not going to move. So yeah, that should be good. Let's see how it feels. Ooh, it looks cool, guys. Look at all those shadows too. I really like that. Neat. Yeah, this is awesome. All right, let's see if I can get up there. One thing that we could do if I wanted to kind of have our ferret move along with it is like I could check if it's on top of this, if we made a prefab for it, and then I could be like, okay, if I'm on top, oh no, I can't jump high enough, oh no. All right, well, that's good to know. I'll lower things a little bit. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I could have it, if you're on top of this, it could kind of grab the ferret and move it with you a bit in whichever direction you're moving the actual thing. I think that would be better than having to like kind of keep scrambling along it. But you guys should let me know what you think. Maybe you think it feels better that we have to move along with it. Maybe that's a bit more of a challenge. So this one, I'm going to lower a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't collide. It looks like it still won't, so that's good. But this is something you have to keep in mind, right? Like how high can we jump? And I don't know if the other ones are still also too high, too low, and we won't be able to make that jump, but it's easier to just kind of change one thing at a time versus trying to change everything at once. So let's see, we're down here. Might even have to move it over. It's definitely too high for us to jump up right now. Let's check out how close this is. Okay, yeah, that's definitely too far. This is good, right? So we know that I want to move it over a little bit, and I want this to go lower than we had it before. So I'll put it down. I'll put it down like another 6 maybe. We'll see how that feels. And this is a lot of level design, right? Like you're just kind of seeing how things feel and being like, oh, well, maybe I'll move it to be this amount and see how that feels. Yeah, let's try that. Honestly, half of level design is just play testing your own levels, which I'm not complaining about. It's a fun job. Yay, we made it to the second one. All right. Can we make it to this one? Looks like we can. Sick. Let's see if it carries us close enough to this edge to be able to make it up. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Whoop. Okay, I think it takes us under. So what I think I'm going to do is add another platform right over here so I can jump onto that one. And then we should be able, hopefully, to make it up onto the ultimate platform. Let's see. I like how long this one is. It'll kind of catch us even if we're a little bit off. And this one isn't moving already, so that's good. And what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to move this to its endpoint so I know exactly where it's going to be. That's already correct. And I can just Control C to get that done. So I think if I'm here, I feel like I'll be able to jump up onto here, but maybe I'll make it just a little bit lower. Hopefully it doesn't cross. I don't think it'll cross paths right here. I don't think it'll have a collision issue. I'm also just going to make it like a little bit of a staircase here. And hopefully we will be able to just go right on up over here. And I might just make this a little bit further out. Maybe not. I guess I can move it a little bit inwards. Yeah, I'll move it like a little bit this way and see if it's a bit easier for us to make that jump there. Yeah, all right, we'll see how that feels. And like I said, I'm probably going to make some more of these moving assets on this wall as well, so that, oh, we have a little bit of a gap here. That's okay, we'll fix it later. But I might just move this around a little bit so that, and add more objects over here so that it can be not just one specific path that you have to take, but you have the ability to choose your path, just like in real rock climbing. All right. Cool. Moving. It's cool how when you have not everything pausing the same amount of time and when everything's moving different speeds. Oh no. I'm gonna miss it. Okay, I got it. It's fun when your own level makes you like I have to win. But yeah, it's cool how the timing disaligns on everything and it feels like everything's moving organically and perhaps like it's not even using the same script. Oh, I forgot that I left another part of level design. I left the initial position to the endpoint here. So let's see. I can't remember exactly how I had it, but I can just scoot it over here. And I think that should be good. And I could cheat by turning off parts of this puzzle instead of having to play test the whole thing every time, and that can be good, especially for rapid development and prototyping. Like sometimes you just want to be able to test parts of the level and turn off other parts. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's actually a hard jump. But I think it's fine for now. It's not a very big level, so no. All right. What I'm gonna do is have it go a little bit lower, even. So maybe like another 5 down for the endpoint. At this point, I'm just having fun and just like making it feel good, making it feel achievable. This is the best part of level design, is when you have something working and you're like, okay, now I just have to make it feel fun. All right. I can make this jump. I can. I'm not a skilled platformer, but I can do it. Oh, I got it. Yes. All right, now we have to wait for the timing to align on these guys. Oh, please. Please come back. It's coming. Okay, next time I go up, I should be able to make it. Oh, yay. Okay, okay. Now we just have to make it to the staircase section. Oh, I have to stay on it. I do, I guess, kind of like the challenge of that. Oh, okay. Just have to make it. Stair 1, stair 2. Yay, we made it. Woo! All right. So right now, actually, it looks like we might be able to make this jump as is. And remember, my level exit is over here, but it's deactivated, so I can't see it right now. So I feel like if I walk, yeah, I would be able to find it eventually, but it's deactivated, so it's not doing anything right now, and I won't be able to exit the level, but I just have to turn that back on, and then I would have won the level. Yay! I think I'm gonna have to push this upper platform back and or make this one a bit shorter so that we can't just kind of make that jump, and we'll have to use that wooden slide-ish type thing that I was envisioning in order to get there. But even so, I feel like after you've succeeded in this puzzle and especially this platforming test, your player pretty much deserves to just be rewarded and kind of have an easy exit to the level. So maybe I'll change this and make it a less achievable jump, and so you have to use that little slide, or maybe I'll just leave it so that you can just make the jump and have it be like an awesome little like wind in your fur type moment. Another thing that I will do is add a checkpoint here. So I think this level feels pretty good now. As far as this initial puzzle, I would probably add more elements to it and make it even more fun and like tweak the challenging aspect of it a bit, but it feels pretty fun to see all the moving parts and be able to like test if you can make those jumps and do the timing and stuff. It feels pretty fun. But I will not be able to reset up here right now because I don't have my checkpoint, so I think that's the last thing I'm going to add for today. I'm also going to, like I said, where'd it go? Turn my level exit back on. A good reminder when you do have it deactivated is if you look over here in your hierarchy, the name of it will be kind of grayed out. You can see the difference in brightness between cage small and block ramp. They both have that really bright blue, and then level exit is deactivated, so it has like a kind of faded out blue. So I just turn that back on. Now my level exit is back, and if I were to complete that puzzle again, I'd be able to win. But I also want to be able to get back up here. If I fall like way down and totally miss this, then I don't want to have to do the entire level over again, which is where the checkpoints come in. So we go to prefabs, it's under level setup. I'll add a checkpoint, just drag it into the scene. And I'm going to make another empty here, get in this habit just for the sake of organization. Now that we have multiple checkpoints, I'll add checkpoint 1 under there. Actually, first of all, as always, set this to 0, 0, 0 since it's an empty parent object. Then add our checkpoint 1, rename this one to checkpoint 2, and put it under checkpoints. Then we're going to take checkpoint 2 and drag it upwards so you can see it has all these different little parts, right? I think I actually might want to add another kind of collider up here because the radius works for all of our other use cases thus far, and it can still work. I'll probably still leave the radius right there, but I think that if we want to be able to have some more rock climbing ability stuff over here and have you be able to choose your path, you don't know which section of this platform here that the player will end up on whenever they complete the level. So you don't want to enforce them like, okay, you have to come over here. And like if you get up over here and then you fall off, like, sorry, you made it up there, but you're being punished basically because you didn't do the checkpoint, which happens to be over here and not where you platformed up to. So what I'm going to do for that, this is our activation bounds. So I'm going to add a box collider. And the one annoying part about this, like not using the transforms, is that you kind of, if you're using the center and you have multiple of these colliders, you kind of just have to tweak values, and that's a little bit annoying. But It's like not terrible enough where it feels awful to do. It's just not as convenient as using these little arrows to drag it around. But center of 0, 0, 0 is fine. I think I might want it just a little bit lower. So I'm just gonna -5. That's too much. -3. Okay, I think that's low enough to where it would be able to trigger it. And then I think that the center is fine. I think I just want it to kind of like stretch in multiple directions. So 30. Yep, that's exactly the width we want. And then, I don't know, 100? More than that. 120. More than that. 130? Yeah, a little bit more. I'll just make it 150, and it's okay if it hangs out of the cage a little bit. Yeah, that's perfect. So that kind of encapsulates our whole entire space up here. So now, no matter which section of this platform the player got up onto at first, once we have more of the rock climbing elements, all of this would activate the flag. So I'll still just leave the sphere collider there because why not? It's fine the way it is. But we now have both of these colliders working together, doing the same thing of activating that. And then the other thing that we want to change is our reset bounds. So this is not the only area that we would be able to fall off into and want to reset back to our checkpoint, right? So I think for this one, I'm probably just going to encapsulate the entire floor and even, let's see, I think I might want 2 colliders on this one as well because I want, if they fall all the way down to the bottom of the floor and they've reached this checkpoint, I want them to be able to, you know, hit the floor and then respawn there. But I also want that to happen if they fall back down onto here. And the problem with having this just be really tall and encapsulate this area as well is that it could accidentally overlap over here too. And we definitely don't want them to come to this section and then reset here. Like we would never be able to exit the level, right? And that would be super annoying. So I know we're a little bit over on the stream, but I'm just gonna finish setting up this little checkpoint just so you guys have seen an example of the checkpoint being set up live. And then hopefully you'll understand a bit more how to use it for your own levels. But yeah, we'll be wrapping up the stream soon. Let me just finish setting this up. I definitely know that I want the center to go down on this one. So -40, that's still too high. -100, too low. You can see it dipping. You can't even see the outline anymore. So it's definitely too low. -80, -60. I think -60 looks fine. Yeah, that looks okay to me. That's pretty much the floor, yeah. So let's see. I think I can honestly just make it like massive and have it encapsulate the whole cage here. Oh, okay, that's way too big actually. Let's try 150. Move it maybe a little bit more centered there. Yeah, that looks good. Make it a bit wider here, maybe like, I don't know, 200? Yeah, so that should pretty much, you can kind of see it. Anywhere below this platform will just count as the floor, and if you hit that and you've already activated this flag up here, then you'll reset. And I also am, let's see if I can just duplicate it here. Yep, I can copy component and then Control V, paste it, maybe? No? Okay, it's going to make me add another box collider, but I can have a second box collider. And let's see, I want the center of this one. We can see that it's going to 0, 0, 0, where the parent is again. So I definitely want it more down than that. Maybe like 40. Now we can see it's down here. Probably good. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect right now. Let's see if I wanted a little bit over here, since again, this is the center of it. And let's see, is this negative direction or yeah, maybe -30 over there. And then the size, we'll just see how big this is. Okay, it's really big. So 50, 60. Yeah, that's good enough. And then let's see, make it a little bit thicker. And then, I don't know, 100? Yeah, that looks good to me. And then, again, it's not perfectly lined up, but it doesn't need to be right now. I think I might make it just a little bit thicker. from side to side. Yeah, I think that works well. So now, if we were to activate that checkpoint up there, we're just going to, again, cheat a little bit. Oh, I did the thing. Have to press on the parent, otherwise you're going to move around a bunch of weird stuff. Okay, so if I press on the parent, move it up here, we're just going to cheat by activating this checkpoint right off the bat. I should just activate it right as I spawn because I have that box collider now. Yep, there we go. Actually, I don't know if that worked as intended. Let me check. So the activation bounds should have this box collider and they should work together, I believe. Move this guy over this way so we know we're not triggering the sphere collider. It might also not quite be working correctly because we're already in it when we spawn, so maybe I'll move him a little bit upwards so he kind of drops in on it. Because there's different events that happen when you enter things versus not. Okay, so that's not working quite as intended, but I'll look into that and figure out, I'll look into why that's not working as I expected. It should just work as a compound collider instead of needing to use separate things. But anyways, we have it activated. So now hopefully if I drop down into this part of the level, it will reset me. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. Even us professionals forget sometimes. So it needs to be a trigger, not a collider. You see how I kind of like landed on air? That's because I didn't make it a trigger. So it's a completely separate type of event. And it needs to be a trigger for both of these in order to actually activate correctly. So now it should work. Cool. So now it's working as a compound collider. And if I fall down here, I shouldn't stop on air. I should reset. Good, good, good. If I jump onto this platform, I missed, but I was reset, so that's fine. This is why it's so useful to have these checkpoints, because now if I miss, I don't have to reset the whole level. But if I jump over here, I should be able to not trigger that floor one or the one that's over there. So I'm safe here. I don't have to be reset to the flag. And I should just be able to exit my level. Yay! So I can tweak this as much as I want, but I think the playground level is at a bare minimum done. So really cool that we could finish this within this stream. Hopefully you guys are inspired to make your own levels, and I'm really excited to have somebody playtest this on Monday and potentially playtest any other levels that are ready to go. But yeah, this is coming together super well. I'm excited by this level. I think it feels fun, and I hope you guys are excited too and are enjoying the Feisty Ferrets project. So I'll see you guys on the next stream. Catch you on Monday.